Welcome back. I'm Kim Bailey, and this is Inside Exec. As you know, Fulyana is away at the moment, and she has, in this third part of our discussion with Oscar Trimboli, sent us through a little bit of a soundbite on her thoughts after reading his book. So with that, you'll hear that first, and then we'll dive back into the conversation that we're having with Oscar, Jamie Wadley and I, and we're this week talking about asking the right question or listening for the right answer to the questions that you're asking, and how you prepare yourself for meetings so that you can listen to everything that is being said, not just what you think is being said. Let's get started.
Hi, Kim. I'm so sorry and disappointed that I won't be there for our podcast recording with Oscar Trimboli. I thank him for the book for me. I really enjoyed that book very much. I did not realize there were so many aspects to listening and so many levels to listening. It certainly made me stop and reflect on how I listen, how I receive and impart and communicate. So I found that quite powerful. What also was fantastic is there are tips and there are exercises to apply. It was very easy to use, but it was very practical and makes a difference. So in that sense, I found myself actually doing these things at the same time, thinking about where can I improve. And then when I did the exercise and that, I realized that yes, and I got a long way to go and I will continue to do so. And I'm definitely going to share some of these learnings and techniques and refer to books, some of my clients as well. Thank you. Bye-bye.
As an aside to that, in terms of management review, how do we bring in those ideals, those modalities into a management review?
I'll ask a clarifying question here. When you talk about a management review, what do you mean?
My background is with quality systems. And so when I'm looking at the annual review of the system to see whether it still fits into the framework of what we're doing, how do I ensure that that review encompasses some deep listening of the issues that are at hand at that moment in time?
Yeah, I think back to what we mentioned earlier on, we can ask questions in the moment, or we can get people to think about questions before the review takes place. So number one, it's not just your listening, it's our listening. So how do we get everybody coming to that review thinking very differently? So some of the clients I work with, they're given literally baseball caps with injured employee, dead employee, wastage in quality systems kind of conversations, and they have to exclusively bring that perspective to the conversation.
Right.
And the skill of the leader in the review is when to bring those people in and how much time do you give them in the conversation. I was working with a pharmaceutical company, and all they had was this big graph about number of days lost to injury. And the other graph was how many reportable incidents were there. And I simply said to them, next time, could we bring in an injured worker as part of the review? There was huge hesitation. It's like, we don't have a protocol for this. It's like, this is the consequence of your health and safety approach. After 2 weeks of negotiation, this meeting happened monthly. They brought this person in with relatively clear boundaries on what they could and couldn't talk about. The tone and quality of the conversation that took place with that person in the room was vastly different to what it was a month before. Making the externality as real as possible will change the way you listen as a leadership team in those management reviews, Kim.
I can see that would reflect very much on stakeholders and customers as well. And I know from my own experience that I rail against automated systems where they haven't been tested for customer use, and you get to a point in it where it just doesn't work. And there's nothing you can do as a customer. There's nothing you can do. You can send them some feedback, but you get nothing on the feedback. No one monitors that email address. It is an area of frustration and an area of development, I think, for organisations that they might need to look at. We've certainly talked about it a number of times on the podcast. It's about looking at those issues from someone else's perspective, not just from the management and the dollar sign at the end of the day.
Yeah. And it's really, really interesting. I worked with an organisation a few years ago, and their customer satisfaction scores were top decile in the world. It's like, we are knocking it out of the ballpark. They were losing market share and the profitability was going down, right? So if you listen to that, something's actually not adding up. So I simply said, how many lost customers are in your customer satisfaction survey? And they said, oh, no, we only invite people to the customer satisfaction survey that are customers. I was like, okay, can we be brave and next quarter work with the marketing teams to go out to customers that we've lost and ask them for their feedback? You can either integrate it into your Net Promoter Score or not. And when the board started to see the data come in for lost customers, it had just confirmed many things that they couldn't have complete visibility to in board meetings because they had a new data set, a new externality of lost customers. And when that lost customer data came together, it triangulated beautifully about lost market share and lost profitability. So you need to be very cautious. If you're an amazing listener to the person in front of you, you may just be listening to the wrong people. You
need to hear the hard message as well as the easy one.
Well, that's it. That's what I'm hearing is we avoid the fear of having the hard conversation and listening to it, because that's where the answers are. You know, you've changed the complete trajectory of the meeting I'm going to have later today, I can assure you.
What will be different based on what? You don't have to be specific, Jamie, but I'm just curious what's going to be different in the orientation.
Well, I must admit, the questions that you've given me about, what will make this a good conversation, what will make this conversation a success for you on their own will completely change the dynamic of the interaction, because there's usually only 4 of us in the meeting. And because it's small, we tend not to listen. Well, I know I'm guilty of this. I tend not to listen to, I'll be brutal, the fluff. And I try to cut through it, and it's very naughty of me. I'm thinking, because there's probably jewels in there that I should be listening to, that I can take on board, that I can apply. So I'm probably the worst offender. What can I say? Guilty.
Yeah, can I give you Can I give you an elegant question to cut through the fluff?
Please.
This
you don't mind if I jot this down.
Look, one of the things you'll notice about all the questions I talk about, they're 8 words or less.
Okay.
If your questions are 8 words or more, it's very likely it's not a question.
Yeah, okay.
So a really simple way to stress test your question for direction, depth, and impact, 8 words or less, probably going to get higher impact, probably going to change direction if you're thoughtful about it. So to cut through the fluff is, thanks, Jamie. I'm just curious if you were to summarize that in a sentence. Thanks, Jamie. If that was a subject line in an email, thanks, Jamie. If that was a book cover title, what would it be? And what you'll do is get them to stop, and they will start to process those extra 125 words we talked about earlier on. And they will make this beautiful, elegant summary. And often you'll see them pause, they'll take in a deep breath, and they'll say something like, actually, and give you the summary. Or they'll go, now that I think about it, Jamie, I haven't even told you about blah, 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 blah. And the conversation moves from fluff to impact because you've taken the time. Here's the dirty little secret of listening. It's not your job to understand what they say. It's your job to help them say what they think and what they mean. Most people just say what they say because they only get the first 125 words out. If you can get them to the next 125 and the next 125, meetings are shorter and they have a bigger impact.
No, that is very, very powerful. I appreciate it. Thank you.
No worries.
The last question that we sent you, I'm hesitating over it now. The question was, what practical daily habits or rituals would you recommend for leaders who want to consistently improve their listening skills over time? And I think it's probably can be shortened to an email subject line that says, what can we do on a daily basis?
Well, the first thing as leaders is our most valuable asset isn't our financial resources or our people. Our most valuable asset is the allocation of our time. And if we allocated time as precisely as we allocated capital, organizations would have a completely different approach to how they run meetings or projects or products or launching new things or quality programs or new change initiatives. If you're a leader, please do not book 1 hour meetings with staff. Please, if you think you need an extended period of time, maximum 50-minute meetings. This gives you time and gives them time. And if you're the leader in the system, eventually your role modeling of shortening meetings will cascade through the system. Now, we all know the team member who arrives 5 minutes after the meeting and says, "Oh, Kim, I'm really sorry I'm late. I've just had back-to-back meetings and I've just come off a call with a customer, but I'm here now. I'm really, really sorry. Let's go," right? Or you start the minute at 5 minutes after the hour. The same person says, "Kim, I love coming to your meetings. Gives me a bit of time, bit of space. Grabbed a drink of water and looking forward to the conversation." Now, both meetings started 5 minutes after the hour, even though the first one was booked for the top of the hour. So think deliberately about time. The second habit for leaders is notice your breath. Before you go into a meeting, take a deeper, a longer breath. Hold it for 2 seconds longer than is comfortable for you. And what it does is it sends a signal here around the lungs and the heart to something called the parasympathetic nervous system. This is where it says to our body, relax, everything's okay. And particularly if you have to make consequential decisions in a meeting, again, just notice your breath, slow your system down so you can process in the prefrontal cortex rather than the limbic system. The limbic system, fight, flight, or freeze. The prefrontal cortex, the most evolved thinking part of the brain rather than the most feeling part of the brain, consumes more blood sugar than any other part of the body. Your brain is 5% of body mass, but it consumes 25% of blood sugars. And if you're making consequential decisions, notice your breath and take a glass of water. Now, those 3 basic things sound super basic and easy to do, yet they're really difficult to practice. Just try one of those 3 things and build on from there. Those 3 things are designed for physical, mental, and systemic impact when it comes to your listening. I'm curious which one Jamie's going to pick.
He just had his drink of water. What do you think?
No, I like the deep breath and hold for 2 seconds longer than it's comfortable. I can see that working straight away. The takeaways here are driving me nuts. I can't keep up with you.
Oscar, it has been a pleasure to hear you and to think about the things that you've shared with us today. Is there anything that you'd like to add that we haven't covered so far?
And this is a really good question. We call this a level 4 question. It's like, what haven't we covered? I'd love everyone to connect with their own listening. Take the 7-minute listening quiz. Visit listeningquiz.com. Discover your primary and secondary listening barriers, and you'll get a 5-page report that tells you what to do about it in very practical, pragmatic, and commercial terms. Deep listening is not therapy in the workplace. Deep listening is designed for lazy people like me to have fewer meetings with higher impact.
That's fabulous. We do thank you, and I'll thank both of you for joining us today. And should we get any questions that come through, we'll pass them on to you. And in the future, we might revisit the subject since it took us this long to get to it in the first place.
Yeah, we've hardly scratched the surface today, Kim, but
That's good.
I'm grateful for the opportunity to listen to your questions and explore a little bit more. Congratulations once again on your 10-year anniversary. Quite an accomplishment.
Quite an accomplishment. We're very happy. All right. Thanks,
Thank
Oscar.
you, Oscar. And I
Thanks
know
for
Kim will
listening.
edit this out, so I'm just going to say I love you, okay? So.
You love Kim or you love Oscar?
No, he loves Oscar.
Oh, okay. All right. If we did that all over again, is there anything we'd do differently?
I'm happy with how that went. I think that as an introduction, it's a good way for us to introduce the idea and the concepts and with some practical tips in it. I do think that it needs a follow-up. I do think that we will get that. And so perhaps sometime next year, we'll look at revisiting the subject with the questions that have come in since then. Or sometimes it might be with case studies, people who've tried to follow through and are still struggling with what they need to do next. Okay.
And if you need more copies of the books for the group or anything, please don't hesitate. Happy to send you another 5 copies. Great questions. These conversations have a completely different texture when they have real questions rather than us kind of guessing what the audience might do. But when you've been doing it for 10 years, that's great. That's why you've got the longevity.
They certainly tell us what we should be asking.
Nice.
There we have our final part in our 3-part series with Oscar Trimboli. There have been a lot of questions come in since we started broadcasting the first 2 parts of this conversation, so we will have Oscar back as a guest sometime during 2026. I thank Jamie Wadley for standing in for Fulyana for the recording of these sessions and for his input to the conversation. For now, I'm Kim Bailey and this is Inside Exec.